Yo, yo.
And we are live. We're live. So, welcome to the Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chapp, along with my co-host Tyler. Tyler, tell the people hi.
What's going on, y'all? We feeling good after this week one, baby. W's galore.
We are feeling pretty damn good.
Let's go.
It is a pretty good. Now I got these sunglasses. They say we're all good. So the Chiefs got their ass kicked by the Lions, so it's
Oh,
all good.
we should have had ski masks for the pod, dude.
Dude, they're all sold out. Like we are like legitimately like first of all, like the ski mask thing that Chauncey Gardner Johnson's saying, it's such a bad idea that it's so great. Like,
Right. I know.
but listen, we went through COVID for like what 2 years, and people were wearing masks, and now they're wearing masks again. So we're getting ahead of the curve. All right, Tyler, we gotta talk about the Chiefs Lions games. Obviously, what was your takeaways in that game?
Yeah, man. I mean, good team win. We had Jared Goff, very safe. Didn't take a ton of risks, ton of shots, which I appreciated because he was kind of giving what the Chiefs were giving us. He was taking it. So a lot of checkdowns. Um, and we'll dive into this a little bit later, but a little bit frustrated with like you can start to see why I was talking shit in the first place about like the lack of intangibles and like the lack of physical talent because there's so many times where a dude just looks like an absolute statue back there. It'd be nice to have somebody that could maybe like move out of the pocket a little bit or just kind of like not be a statue. But the guy does what he can to get the dub, and I thought it was a good win. Defense played really, really good, dude. You might be onto something with this defense being a top D. I mean, they looked really sick. Um, Offense, I just think it's week one, man. You can't overreact, you can't underreact. I mean, we fell stale and stalled a little bit here and there, but it's week one. It's going to happen. So we'll see what these guys are made of, and we'll see what happens week two, man. I'm pretty pumped. So good team win. Lot of like something that stood out to me right away that I'm sure we'll talk about that I want to just throw out there is that like I don't remember in recent memory any Lions team week one that the amount of rookies had such a big impact. It was huge.
The one thing I take away from this is the Lions didn't play their best game by no stretch of the imagination. They probably played like their C B minus game. Like honestly, like if they would have played at any other time, maybe they would have lost because obviously there were now the asterisk part about what Mike Tirico said. It's so stupid. It's overplayed. But Travis Kelsey, Chris Jones, they obviously played a role, but so did the Detroit Lions because they both. I think if you watch that game over again, I think both teams really didn't play their best game. Like on the Mahomes part, on the Detroit part, Ben Johnson said he didn't call the best offensive game that he could have called. So he's going to be trying to go out there and play his ass off this coach's ass off this week. But yeah, like it could have been a lot better from the Lions standpoint. But look, you make no apologies for going 1-0. You make absolutely no apologies for winning the game. Period. End of story. That everyone could tell you that like you make like look, we've heard it before about the Detroit Lions. Like, they win a game, they lost a game that they really shouldn't have lost. Like, we can go back to the Dallas game. We can go back to the Chicago Bears game with the process game with Calvin Johnson. No one was making excuses for the Detroit Lions then. And I'm not going to make excuses for the Kansas City Chiefs right now because I don't care. You lost the game. Lions won. They were the better team. And here we are. We're in week 2. The Lions are going to play Seattle, as in our graphic, and they are going to beat the shit out of them. I am convinced, Tyler. I'm almost going to put a wager on it that they'll beat them by 9.5 points.
I like it, man. I'm gonna call out our boy Darcy here, man. He was saying Seahawks were going the distance this year, so I got to give him a little shit, man.
Did you
I
know? Did you know? So I'm gonna go into the stats that matter because I really think that people really need to look at this. So Seahawks allowed 7 pressures last week, and they're not gonna have their tackles this week. Okay,
yeah,
so
Charles Cross is
Hutch,
out.
Hutch and Harris are gonna eat. Pascal, Houston, they're all gonna eat. Stafford threw for 334 yards without Cooper Kupp. Seahawks 95 yards passing last week. I said that right. 95 yards passing. I mean, you could go to a high school game in Midland where
That's why you don't pay guys like Geno Smith that have a one-off year that just go crazy because Gino got an absolute bag, and he's screaming like a little girl when Aaron Donald's coming after him, and the dude had 95 passing yards. I mean,
Now
I
I want
understand his offensive line is straight up atrocious, and I do understand that, but like, dude, that's money. That's money you could have spent on a line, man. They gave Gino a bag, dude.
now look at the last part. Walker had 3.22 seconds behind the line of scrimmage, which was the most in the NFL. That's not going to happen this week because obviously I don't know how he got this much yards behind the line of scrimmage and he didn't even get 100 yards rushing. Just totally, it was crazy to me. Now, before we shift to the Seahawks game, we have to look at the rookies because I thought the rookies had they were more than all right. They were great. Gibbs led the league in missed tackles. 6 out of 7 attempts he forced to miss tackle. Branch, fifth best speed on that pick six. Fifth best speed in the NFL, guys. Fifth
Yeah,
best.
you're talking about out of receivers and running backs and quarterbacks, like out of all players, fifth best.
And I gotta give kudos to Laporta. Sam Laporta had 3.4 yards average separation in his routes. That's from Next Gen Stats. And Next Gen Stats,
That's amazing, by the way.
and let's put it this way: he was number, I think, 13 or 14 in the NFL. So everything that kid did in the first game, if he can multiply that in going into Seattle, going against Carolina, this kid's gonna be great because his catch percentage, 100%. You remember when we drafted Eric Ebron? Like, we were all like, man, what's his catch percentage going to be? It was in the low 60s. This guy was 100%. That's pretty remarkable when you think about it because he's a rookie, first game. And tight ends, like, I know a lot of people don't really grasp this knowledge, but like tight ends, they take a little bit of time because they're learning not just to go do routes and do the route tree. They're also learning how to run block. They're learning how to, they're learning offensive line calls. And the fact that that was their first game was on the road at Arrowhead, the offensive line wasn't good. I think they played their B minus game, but like in that scene, in that setting at Arrowhead, like you're going silent count the whole game. You're going silent, like basically the whole. You're doing hand motions to get kind of like your team ready to go, and I think that's what they did a pretty good job. And for Sam Laporta to be 100% catcher percentage, and this separation is what matters the most because it was him and Brock Wright who had the most separation on the entire team.
Yeah, no, I mean that's big, dude. You're talking about of all receivers, running backs, tight ends. I mean that's big time. I mean, it means he's getting amazing separation. Put that in perspective. Kenny Galladay had averaged like less than a yard of separation during his time with the Lions here, and that was almost dead last in the NFL. And Zay Flowers had one of the higher ones at 3.5 in week one. So that's only 0.1 yard difference between separation between Zay Flowers and his opponents versus Laporta and his, which is a big deal because, I mean, Sam Laporta is not running. He's not a 4-3 guy.
No, he's not.
So
He's
it means
not
he's
going.
crafty. It means he can get open. He's
He's just.
crafty with his routes.
I can read more into that stat of the average yards of separation just by the way that he plays the game. And him coming from Iowa, where the quarterback was Spencer Petras, he had to get separation to get the ball. So that's number one. And if you would have watched Iowa, you would have known that. I like what Ikenna says on YouTube. He said Laporta had some key blocks on that Montgomery game-winning touchdown, and Sam Laporta did have that key block on that play that led to the touchdown. And that's what we talk about with tight ends. Like, it's great if you're a tight end that can catch and get like 100 yards a game, okay? But if you could block and you can catch, you're an all-around great tight end. Like, obviously, people love Kyle Pitts, right? Kyle Pitts could be a great tight end at any stretch of the imagination. Problem is, he can't block. Why do people like George Kittle so much and Mark Andrews so much and, guys like that? Because they block. Like Travis Kelce. He's known for his receiving skills, but don't worry, dude. That kid's got offensive line in his DNA.
Yeah, I mean, and Laporta looks like the next in line to be, next one of the next great tight ends, kind of in in the NFL. I mean, it's obviously very early, and I'm not making any crazy statements as of yet until obviously we get to evaluate his play and check and look how he looks. But as of right now, he looks the part and he looks good. I think is, and we've talked about this a ton. He's what we wanted Hawkinson to be. He's got good hands. He gets yards after catch. His attitude's a hell of a lot better than Hawkinson's. I just love this guy, man, and I'm not trying to diss Hawk on this because he's not on their team anymore, so I'm not going to waste my energy and time with it. But this is what we thought we were getting when we took Hawkinson 7th overall, and
Yeah,
instead we got Laporta at what 36,
31.
something
No, yeah, 30, 34, I think, or
34,
35.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways, early second round, and I think Hawkinson was 7th. So
yeah. It,
and
it, it,
Ebron was 8th. So we got a guy who is better, has a better trajectory than both of those guys. And again, Brad Holmes, where he sees value, man. Like this guy is a super good value pick. Like I think he could easily tight end 1 out of this class. But there are some decent tight ends. There's potential this class for some good tight ends. I'll give him that.
Yeah, you know what I thought about Sam Laporta when he came out? And obviously, if you look at that draft class that Brad Holmes had, every player made an impact that he drafted. Gibbs had those missed tackles. He's going to get more involved in the game. I think with this week being at home, I think they're going to get Gibbs more involved. I think Brian Branch had a hell of a game. Obviously, he was the pick guy to intercepted Patrick Mahomes. And like I said, I knew Patrick Mahomes was going to throw an interception. I just didn't know it was going to be to Brian Branch. That was amazing. And then
Yeah.
the dog is going crazy.
No, man, Brian Branch is an absolute dog. The guy he's got great instincts. He's got good ball tracking. He threw down some good tackles. He just seems to have a really good feel for the game. He seems like like nose to the grindstone, hardworking, like Nick Saban type of guy. It made perfect sense at Alabama, and to get him at 45 to pair him up with Brad Holmes and Aaron Glenn in this defense. I'm sorry, pair him up with Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn for this team. Brad Holmes going and getting them at 45 was just an absolute steal. And there's still nothing come out to say why the hell he fell. There was no bad medicals.
No, because people thought he was slow. Remember that? People
Dude,
thought
yeah,
he was slow, and then
because I think his 40 time was kind of shit. I think
his 40 time wasn't good, but like when you're scouting talent, right? You're not looking at their 40 because you're never going to be in an opportunity where you're doing a 40-yard dash as a safety, okay? And if you
right.
are, that's because you're getting beat. What I love what Nick Saban said when Brian Branch got drafted. He said, he might not have the quickest like 40 time, but don't worry, he's going to get there in time. And obviously, Nick Saban, a guy who has been around the block, who has won national championships, when he says something like that, you listen.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's exactly it. Like he ran just shy of a 4.6, and so like a lot of people, yeah, I can see that they're like, oh my gosh, it's not very good for a safety. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, I mean, as long as you're not like, I mean, some like mind bogglers would be like, Tease Tabor and a 4.676. I mean, if it's like so blatantly bad, like I understand that, but like a 4.6 when a guy has like insane game speed, because Tease Tabor, you'd never look like he had insane game speed. He
No.
looked slow all the time.
Well, he
So
was
you
getting
get
beat in the SEC, so yeah.
you watch Brian Branch and you see how fast he was, and then to see him to get over 20 miles per hour and be like the 5th fastest player in the whole league on Football Sunday, just goes to show, man. Like Brad has a special eye for talent, and maybe these guys got to take notes because, like, I mean, if you're gonna pass up on a guy because he didn't have enough proper training to run a great 40. Hey, we'll take that. We'll take that every time, man. So I love our scouting department, and I like that Brad Holmes, like he's so involved because he was a former director of scouting, and obviously most GMs are involved heavily in scouting because they're selecting the players. But he seems to be like leading that scouting department a lot of the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's some other teams they have like the GM just kind of like send scouts all over and they just kind of trust what they say and they take it and run with it. And I like that Brad Holmes is like really involved with the scouting aspect. It's cool.
Well, I think Brad Holmes' scouting background really came into the forefront because not only did Brian Branch make an impact, Jack Campbell make an impact, Kenna, again, Jack Campbell had an athletic diving pass breakup. When we talked about Jack Campbell, a lot of people talked about how he was unathletic or something of that nature. When all the athletic scores said he was athletic. The way he plays the game is like your typical middle linebacker. Just he's gonna stuff the run. And the future is bright for all these rookies because even a guy like Broderick Martin, who was inactive against the Chiefs, I think he has he could be a key player down the stretch. But when you look at Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Jack Campbell, Jahmyr Gibbs, you can't help but feel that this team, Brad Holmes, this team, they got it right when they drafted all these guys.
Yeah, no.
Remember when we were doing the draft podcast and people were saying that we drafted Campbell too early, we drafted Jahmyr Gibbs too early. Well, in the second round, you got Brian Branch. So you basically got your first round pick that you really, really wanted.
It's just hilarious because there's so many mocks where I mean you did too, but I remember specific ones that I had that I actually had I had Gibbs and Campbell and guys like that, but it wasn't at the spots they were at. But it's funny because those guys are guys that just popped off to us. We had all at some point had. I know you were big on Sam Laporta pre-draft.
Yep.
We were both pretty big on Jack Campbell. I was shouting Jack Campbell from the rooftops pre-draft. I thought it was exactly what we needed. But it's just cool because like I said, the haul that we got, the fact that we were able to get a lot of those guys that we wanted all over the draft was just awesome. And to wrap that into the game, it was just huge to see them make such a big impact early, and I love that. Just looking at some of the comments here. Yeah, it says Lions O-line finally got through a game intact. I mean, kind of. Taylor Decker supposedly right now is kind of going through it. I don't know the status of that. No one knows right now.
He didn't practice today, so that's.
I'd like to think it's just veteran rest for the most part. But I mean, if you're not practicing all week, I don't know. But
don't know.
But a guy like Taylor Decker, I do think that you can because he's a vet and he knows and he's been solid for years.
You don't have
he's a guy that could take 5 days of rest and play on Sunday.
Well, and
he's a tough son of a bitch, man. He really is.
And you drafted a guy in Kobe Sorsdahl, who obviously the team feels pretty high on because they got rid of a lot of guys like Bobby Hart, a veteran tackle in the league. They got rid of Fede, who was a veteran tackle in the league, and they said, screw that. We have a good backup tackle in Kobe Sorsdahl. And that hasn't happened. Maybe Sorsdahl doesn't play tackle. Maybe they move Vaitai to right tackle, and then maybe Sewell goes to left tackle, and you put Glasgow in at guard. I'm fine with that too. Mayank had a good one. He says, Campbell, this is one of our great admins of the Detroit Lions News page. Campbell is steady. He reads plays well and is in position to make plays. And that's the key part, though. And it was funny because a lot of people didn't like Alex Anzalone, but he had a great game too. I thought Alex Anzalone had a really damn good game.
He's changed my mind a lot on him too. I mean, I see that he's really valuable as a leader, and he may not be the fastest or the best, but like we said, dude, I swear we've been talking about the same things for a long time, but it's just because they always remain true, and that's I don't like these guys as number ones, but I like these guys as role players.
Right, and if you can if you could have a guy like Anzalone who comes off the bench, or just you have Jack Campbell that comes off the bench, or Derek Barnes, and you can mix them up and keep them fresh, though I'm all for it.
Exactly.
He kind of said something funny. He said, "Super stoked to not see the Lions hype train fall off the rails after 1 week." I love it. I do love it because I think that we're all accustomed to not having nice things, but I feel like if you're a Lions fan, this is the first time that you could really jump onto a team, because I don't think this team is just some randomly good team. I think they're coached well. I think they have talent. And a lot of people always talk to me about why do I think the Lions are a better team this year? And it's because look, they added all these guys in the draft, which I think they're all going to be good players. They added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Cameron Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, who we have not been able to see Emmanuel Mosley. But Jerry Jacobs last week had the lowest quarterback rating against Patrick Mahomes. That was after, if you were watching our season preview, we were talking about Jerry Jacobs having the best QB rating against. He had the best QB rating against on the team. That's exactly what you're talking about when you talk about Jerry Jacobs.
And Jerry's coming in motivated. He's he's a guy that's always going to have a chip on his shoulder. All those undrafted guys always do. I think he's fighting and clawing to stay relevant and keep a spot on this team. The fact that we're signing and drafting, or not drafting, but signing these corners, he wants to make sure his place on this team is solidified, and I think he's doing that well. Steve Tracy Sure says Gibbs could be at the beginning of Barry Sanders' effect on defense, kids grease lightning, and tough.
I agree with him. I
I
think I think putting it up against Barry Sanders is a little too high. But like, if you tell me that this kid could be Alvin Kamara right now, but a more tougher version, I buy it.
so I'm curious. I want to see like I've got to see what he's made of throughout the season to really be able to judge that. I'm so like we're so used to being beaten up and shit on from like Swift because the dude was hurt every other play, and like he was so just not tough. It's like
Here's
we've
where
got to be able to see this guy. We have to be able to see Gibbs. We know that he's fast, and we can. I want to know like I want to get a full season out of him before I can make any sort of crazy judgments.
Well, here's the thing. You talk about DeAndre Swift, okay? The one problem I had with Swift coming out of Georgia was he wasn't able to stay healthy at Georgia. We drafted him in the second round. We could have drafted Jonathan Taylor. That's another story for another day. It's another Bob Quinn draft pick. But like, I always look at it like in college, right? Like, how many tough yards do you get? And like, if you look at Jahmyr Gibbs at Alabama, of course he had some great running lanes, okay? But you got to remember where he came from at the start. So he started his college career at Georgia Tech. I don't think anyone is banging down the doors for a Georgia Tech offensive lineman. So
Right.
when you talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and can he last a full season, I think if you can run behind a Georgia Tech offensive line, I think you're pretty damn good. And with this offensive line he has in Detroit, he's going to be really helped out by the lanes that they're going to open. Now, what I really do want to see from Jahmyr Gibbs is I want to see him running between the tackles at a bit better rate. He didn't run that much between the tackles, but that's going to be David Montgomery's game. But if Jahmyr Gibbs can get outside and make people miss, like one of those it's gonna hit. Like you're gonna hit one for 50 yards.
And I there's something interesting as we kind of roll into this preview with the Seahawks. I was talking with a buddy and he said something about like, oh, I want to see Gibbs get all these carries and like Montgomery got way too many carries, blah blah blah. I'm actually like maybe I'm in the minority on this, but I'm okay with like having games where Montgomery gets a big bulk of carries because it's kind of like that effect of like, hey, let this tough little stout muscle hamster bash that shit through the tackles 15, 20 times a game. And then you got Bottle and the Lightning, Mr. You got Thunder and Lightning, you got Mr. Breakaway Speed that can break you off for a 50, 60-yard catch, 50, 60-yard run, can reach to the outside, use more gadgetly. Now, I do think Gibbs obviously needs more carries than he's going to. That's been made clear by Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson. But I also don't hate the idea of getting a guy like David Montgomery who can handle, punching it through the tackles for 15, 20 carries a game. Like you kind of need that, bro. Like I don't see Gibbs as being a 25 carry per game guy. Like he's not Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think you just have to manage the running back load pretty well. I think like if you can manage it with Dave Montgomery as your guy that can pound in between the tackles, and then you unleash Jahmyr Gibbs when like that you're breaking down the defense, that could be a key part in you basically like making a play happen in the game. We talk about all the time about how like with Dave Montgomery, like he does do things right. And like he didn't have a great game, but let's be honest right now. I don't think the Lions offensive line was totally on mark with like the protections and how they were blocking because there was a couple missed assignments. But you know what? Dave Montgomery did a pretty damn good job, especially that game winning touchdown. That was pretty clutch, and he read the right lane and he took it down there. So look, I don't need Jahmyr Gibbs to have like 30 carries, okay? I don't need that because he needs to stay fresh. But at some point, you're going to put Jahmyr Gibbs in the game. Maybe it's a game where you know that you have a mismatch at the linebacker or safety spot. Like maybe when J-Mo comes back, that just unleashes Jahmyr Gibbs because not only are people going to have to prepare for Jahmyr Gibbs, they're going to have to prepare for Jameson Williams. And then if Sam Laporta keeps his same kind of average separation up, like they're going to have to prepare for him too. And you're talking about three players that you're not even including St. Brown, or you're not even including Khalif Raymond. So that's what I look at with this team.
Yeah, and dude, it's weird because like I don't even know what the hell it looks like to have J-Mo in for a full game, like a full amount of snaps.
We don't know. Like we don't know.
I have no idea what it's like for him to be. on the field for a majority of the game. Like literally when he was playing last year, I think the most snaps he had gotten a game was like
4.
maybe 15, maybe.
But he wasn't like he wasn't touching the ball a lot.
Right. So it's just gonna be weird to see the plan for him to be like in a full game because I still think that like I think a lot of people are writing him off and a lot of people are like claiming bust or that he's not gonna be something and like dude, I just hope he comes back and he works hard and he proves everybody wrong because having a guy like that who can break the game open with that speed like he did in college, I mean obviously we haven't got a chance to see it yet in his
And
pro
that
career.
and that
It
is
would
the
be huge, dude. It would be huge.
that is the only thing missing with this team right now. They need someone that could break the top of the defense off. Like
Because
we
like
all
I would love a true X receiver, but like if you told me that we had to roll out with JMO and he's doing JMO things like living up to his potential, and you got to have like Josh Reynolds, JMO, and like Amon Ra, like I'm fine with that.
it,
I
it,
mean, it's not ideal. I want a big X guy. I wanted like maybe a Quentin Johnson type,
right.
but it's cool. Like roll those guys out and we can roll. We can rock, bro. It's cool.
But as someone told me though, like I thought it was interesting with the way he said this, but like he basically said, like, look, you're basically gonna get someone at the trade deadline, regardless if you're traded to someone or not, because you're getting JMO back.
Yeah,
Like, and I
yeah,
think people are underestimating what he could do to this offense, and I think that if you watched him in training camp, I think that if him and Jared Goff get on the same page, it could be beautiful. Now, is it going to be beautiful? We'll see what happens, and let's see. Let's hope he puts in the work and
yeah.
he's fully healthy. But he would be huge to this team. Now,
I'm smiling from ear to ear right now, thinking when we trade for Mike Evans at the trade deadline.
I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to be totally and completely honest with you. I could see Brad Holmes make a blockbuster trade at the trade deadline
Yeah,
if they're at least, let's say they're. So the Raiders game is probably the Raider that Tuesday is the trade deadline. If you say that they have 6 wins at that time, I think they're totally buying and they're making a trade. That's my opinion.
yeah. No, I mean I hope so. And like it's yes, he's made trades, but he always kind of seems like, hey, look, I'm gonna not make any rash decisions. I'm gonna like not pull the trigger on anything crazy. All Brad Holmes' moves are calculated. He likes to work through the draft. He likes to develop his own guys. He likes to build
But
culture, build a team.
I think that he knows that he
It's
could
probably
draft.
time. It's
I think
yeah,
he I think he knows that he can draft players wherever he drafts them. And if he had to give up a second round pick for Mike Evans or a second round pick, and listen, we're not even concluding like what if Aaron Donald is available at the trade deadline?
yeah.
You
You
know what I'm
don't
saying?
know. I mean,
Like
they
you
they
don't
they
know.
all of a sudden start shopping guys at like week 6 that you weren't even sure were available. They're like, yeah,
That's why you got to get.
screw it,
That's
come
why
get
you
them.
got to get closer to trade deadline because you never know who's going to become available. It's kind of like hockey. Like you never know who's going to be available to trade deadline unless that team absolutely blows and there's a player in a contract year that they're not going to sign. Then
Right.
you start seeing early trades, but most of the time it's like in the at the trade deadline they're like, screw it, we got to get rid of this guy because we suck. So I wanted. So let's shift gears. Let's go to the Seahawks and let's go to the Lions game. Tyler, I have 3 key matchups that I want you to weigh in on. So the first key matchup is the Lions defensive ends versus the Seattle Seahawks backup tackles. I think that's a key matchup that there's 4 of them here. But the Lions offensive line versus Seattle defensive line, I think if they can get a good push in the run game, I mean, look what the Rams did to the Seattle defense. I think the Lions offensive line is way better. I think if they can control the pace of the game with the run game, I think they could be really, really good. The Lions linebackers versus Kenneth Walker. That's K9. He's not number. I don't think he's number 9. Is he number 9 in Seattle? I don't think so.
Yeah,
Is he?
I think so. Yeah.
All right, whatever. Anyways, Jared Goff versus Seattle secondary. Which of those matchups do you see as a critical matchup for the Detroit Lions, or do you have one off the top of your head?
Yeah, let me see that slide again. Um, I like. I mean, the ends versus the tackles are always going to be a big matchup, right? So I mean, I'm hoping that Hutch, dude, watching him like battle how Jawan Taylor was 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage and false starting every play, and he was still killing it. Like I'm excited to see what he does against these scrubs in Seattle. I think that he's going to have another Geno Smith's going to have another oh shit moment where Aiden's breathing down his neck. Um, I would like to see. I would like to see Kenneth Walker versus our run defense. I think that's going to be our next big true test of how our run defense is because Kansas
Mhm.
City doesn't have a run offense.
No.
And like Carolina last year and Seattle both ran down our freaking necks last year. So this will be a good test to see, okay, what do we have in our run D? And I think the
Well,
personnel changes a little bit too.
Broderick Martin.
Isaiah Buggs is active.
Broderick Martin.
Broderick
Yeah,
Martin possibly.
I
So
think
I think with some of these key like depth pieces, they might just do like an active healthy scratch like just lineup
like a
matchup
baseball
better.
lineup, like a baseball lineup.
Yeah,
Where you're facing a
which is brilliant.
you're facing a left-handed hitter, and you say, you know what, you're left-handed pitcher, and you're like, okay, well, we're gonna load this lineup with lefties. I think you're gonna do that same thing with this defensive tackle kind of rotation, because the next 2 weeks you're gonna be playing some good running backs.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm hesitant on Geno Smith, I'm more hesitant on Desmond Ridder. I thought Desmond Ridder was gonna be a pretty decent quarterback for Atlanta. I was talking to someone who went to Atlanta Falcons training camp, and the one thing that really worries him about Desmond Ridder, and we know this for a fact because there are certain quarterbacks that have this tendency, and it's never good. Where they're not aggressive to pass the ball downfield. You know, that's what's going to happen with Desmond Ridder. With Geno Smith, he's more likely to take shots with it. Obviously, we know he's a veteran. He's willing to do that, but he only had 95 yards passing last week, and I don't think that was just some dominant defensive performance by the Rams. I felt like that they got pressure on Geno Smith, and they just made him think about where he was going with the ball and where he was standing in the pocket. That's what I think was happening.
And I have a kind of an interesting hot take on the Falcons. If they aren't in contention, I think they want to believe and they want people to believe in Desmond Ridder as their quarterback. I don't think they truly believe. I think that if they don't get a shot at Caleb Williams or Drake May, this next year, my hot take is that they throw a first round pick or second round pick and try to go get Kyler Murray from Arizona.
Ugh. You talk about a guy who is. You talk about.
I mean, I don't like Kyler, but I could totally see him going to Atlanta for like a second or third round pick.
If I was a Falcons, if we're being honest with ourselves, if I was a Falcons right now, and you said I could throw a first round pick at these two quarterbacks, Justin Fields or Kyler Murray, I'm throwing the first pick. I'm throwing that first at Justin Fields.
Oh yeah,
no doubt about it. Because Kyler Murray, I'm telling you this about Kyler Murray.
I think Kyler Murray is overrated, and I think he's garbage. But I also think that, and I'm sorry for any Arizona fans or the NFL, don't come.
Who cares about them? They're stupid anyway.
I also think Arizona is one of the worst ran franchises in all of sports. The Cardinals.
Well, I always tell people. So tonight the Eagles take on the Vikings, right? I always tell people that Jalen Hurts is everything that Kyler Murray isn't. He's a leader. He's a finesse kind of guy. He's a team guy. And Kyler Murray is none of that. And that's the difference between those two quarterbacks. And they play a similar game.
With his age and some of his early stats, and I don't, like I said, I don't like him, but there's going to be some quarterback needy team out there that if Arizona says, hey, we are getting Caleb Williams or we're getting Drake May or we're getting Shedeur Sanders and we're moving on from Kyler, some team will be like, okay, we're going to give you another chance to see what you can do. Some team will. And I got a feeling that the Falcons will be.
I mean, we're talking about the same league that has passed around Carson Wentz from team to team. So, I mean, we're not going far. And Aaron Rodgers getting hurt and Zach Wilson's back in the line in the quarterback limelight. I mean, this is great. So good luck, Jets fans. I hope you had the under on your win total. But
Dude, that sucks.
So it's crazy because I'm gonna put this up here because I think this was one of the things that not that one. God damn it. Which one is it? It's this one. Okay, so last week between the tackles, Lions only allowed 7 yards. I think it was on 10 carries. Hutch separation from quarterback was 4.52%. Hutch quarterback hits 3. They had 7 quarterback hits total on.
Yeah, I want to say I think he had a career high in pressures too. I think he had 7 pressures.
Yeah, he had a really good week. And look at Patrick Mahomes. You're not going to sack. Geno Smith is he's more sackable than Patrick Mahomes. I feel like Patrick Mahomes is kind of like Houdini. Like you think he got him covered, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Where's the ball, bro?"
Yeah. Well, for people that are like, "Oh, well, we didn't have any sacks against Kansas City," it's like, dude,
how many teams have sacks against Patrick Mahomes?
They have a top 5 quarterback of all time already, and shoot me, I don't care. He's probably already top 5 of all time.
I was listening to him talk about Hutch and that defensive line before the game. I think it was on Thursday, and he literally said, "Look, I'm not gonna have much time to get the ball off, so I'm gonna have to make some moves in the backfield." Don't think that didn't play in his mind. And Geno Smith he's not that Patrick Mahomes type where he can throw on the run like Patrick Mahomes. There's only one Patrick Mahomes. So look, this is a better matchup for the Lions defense compared to Patrick Mahomes by far.
Yeah, no, and I'm and just scheme alone, like we had to battle against not only like Mahomes and some of their top players, but we also had to like battle against trying to go against Andy Reid, man. He's one of the best coaches of all time. And he's one of the best play callers of all time. That's what makes him so special. And, we were able to work around that and get the win. Dude, I have heard it so many times, and I cannot agree more. Losing, we had all the makings of a SOL loss last week. Literally, it was coming. And you know what? We didn't. We found a way to make it happen.
You just said something, because guess what the NFL has just sent out? Mayock posted this on the page.
Oh, let me guess, an apology.
So the NFL plans to crack down on illegal tackle alignment starting this week, following the debacle in Week 1 with Chiefs right tackle
starting Week 2. Nice.
Taylor. Per Matt Verdeem, I don't know where he's from. This was highlighted on the weekly training tape, which is sent to all 32 clubs and officials. So look, not only did the Lions beat the Kansas City Chiefs, they also beat SOL, because we know, us as Lions fans, we know for a fact that the Lions of old, they would have lost that game. They would have literally lost that game, and then we would have all been like, see?
Well, how many people were holding their breath thinking, oh, shit, Mahomes is going to complete a 4th and 25. They're going to kick a last-minute field goal. We're going to lose, and we're all going to be pissed, hanging our heads.
But you know what?
Stone hands Tony, baby. Stony Tony. Let's go.
Kadarius Toney is still one of my favorite college players, not for a good reason. But I remember when he was playing against Georgia, and they were down 35-0 against Georgia, and he caught the ball and got all the way to the 1 and said, screw it, I'm going to drop the football. And that's exactly what he did. And they didn't score on that play because Georgia recovered the fumble. And that's Kadarius Toney for you. And there's a lot of people in New York that don't like Kadarius Toney. You can kind of see why. He's kind of full of himself a little bit. But, look, we talk about...
regardless of what people say about this asterisk and all this other shit, you know what? Who cares if we had out by Kadarius Toney Stonehands, or if they didn't have Kelsey or Jones? We went into Arrowhead and we freaking won. I don't care about that other shit. A W is a W, my brother.
You're not going to say sorry for a W.
No, hell no.
This isn't going to happen. And I got keys to win. I want you to take a look at this. So my thing is get interior pass game going, because if you watched Seattle last week, Puka Nuka, or whatever the hell his name is, you could be Nakatuka.
Yeah, Puka Nakua.
Whatever his name is. It's a hard name to say. He was an interior.
I picked him up in fantasy, bro, this week, so let's go.
Well, hopefully he does pretty good. But the slot receivers had they had a lot of good. They weren't covered real well against Seattle.
That makes me salivate for Amon-Ra.
Well, this is an Amon-Ra type game, because if he's in the slot, can you imagine if Puka Nuka's getting yards? You imagine what Amon-Ra is going to get? Now, the second thing I'm going to talk about, I want to talk about, is stop Seattle from running the ball. Last year, they absolutely ran it down your throat in key situations, and that's how they smoked us last year. Ikenna is right. That's how they smoked us last year against. Yeah. And when you realize that the Seattle,
didn't Rashad Penny have like 170 yards?
It was something stupid like that.
Stupid, bro.
It's just so stupid that people
at least like 140, 150.
They forget about that whole game. Like, the key part of that game was not getting a tackle on Rashad Penny on that 4th and 2 for them to ice the game. We didn't force a punt on the Seattle Seahawks last year. So I heard it from Dan Campbell. I heard it from Jared Goff that they're pretty pissed off that they have lost these guys twice. And the fact that they've given up 99 points in 2 games to the Seattle Seahawks, don't think that goes like, don't think Aaron Glenn's going, oh, this is going to be great. He's going to be pissed off because they've allowed 99 points to these guys.
Well,
And the last one I want to get your opinion on, and we'll go through this all with you, Tyler.
Of course.
I want to jump out to a lead early. Like, let's get out to a 14-0 lead early. Make Geno Smith play catch up, and maybe you bait him into a couple throws that he doesn't want to make, and Chauncey Gardner picks him off.
Yeah, and what I'm gonna say, and this has something to do with our later on in my closing arguments that I'll dive into a little bit deeper. But something I was gonna say about those points that you're making, because they're all very important. This is the year that we finally have an opportunity to start the change, and I've talked about it before, of let's actually go from a team with all this potential and all this hype to being an actual good football team. We have a chance to actually come out and start off the season on a good note, start off the season on a kind of a little bit of a hot streak, and do it right from the beginning, not catch fire after we're 1-6 or 1-7, and not be this team that has all this potential. And so, yeah, and he kind of makes a point. I mean, as far as Seattle goes, last time in the playoffs, they kicked our ass too. So, we these guys have a chip on their shoulder, and the coaches and the players. So, that makes perfect sense to me. Hop out early, try to put your foot on the gas and put your foot on their necks. We're at home. We have a bunch of excited fans wearing ski masks. We are embracing this culture. Make sure you're getting pressure up the middle, blow these dudes up, because I think these guys know and they have an idea, and we can see as fans, the second you start to get full of yourself, or you think you've made it, or you think that you've got this, look at last year. We thought oh, Carolina's an easy game, and we let them punch us right in the freaking mouth, dude. We did not. We thought we were hot shit and we were going to come in and just get an easy win with Carolina and continue our wins, and they absolutely sucker punched us on the side of the mouth. And I think going through that a few times last year, with it being a young team, those were really good building blocks and experiences. So that's, out of anything you said, that would be my biggest key for this game, is exactly that, and getting a lead early and hanging on to it. If you bounce out to a 14-0 or 17-0 lead right away, I mean, that's huge, because you let a team like Seattle hang around. They do have playmakers.
Yeah.
I mean, they got guys that can score. They got Jackson Smith and Jigba, a rookie. They got Tyler Lockett, obviously DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker. They've got guys, bro. And in the NFL, no team is necessarily an automatic W slouch.
No. And I think with this Seattle team, obviously you look at Geno Smith and you go, is he really a good quarterback in this league? We all know they had a great year last year, but last year isn't the same, because look at how he started the year this year. Against the Rams defense, you could say is not one of the elite defenses in the NFL. I think everyone can agree to that. So if you can get them behind, if the Lions jump out to a 14-0 lead, right? There's a potential that they could absolutely make Geno Smith absolutely hate his life, because he's going to have to go play captain comeback. And there's just certain quarterbacks that don't like to be in that role. We know Jimmy Garoppolo is one of those guys. He doesn't like to be in the comeback route, because look, he's not that type of quarterback. We know that a guy like Patrick Mahomes relishes being in that role, because he'll come back from an insane amount of points, 28 points. I think he came back from with the Titans a couple years ago.
This guy right here, Matty Staff, dude, loved it.
He's another guy who can come back. I think Jared Goff is that guy too, that can make some good throws at the end of the game. He's not really too timid to make those throws. If you got that quarterback, it's very hard to say.
I'd much rather have 9 back there to lead a comeback if we're down in the fourth quarter. But as far as getting a lead and maintaining it and taking the shots and not being reckless with the ball, I love that about Jared. He doesn't take unnecessary bad risks for the most part, which has led to his current streak of pass attempts right now without an interception. I just jinxed it. Knock on wood. If it happens, it's my fault. But he's 44 pass attempts away from breaking Tom Brady's record for the most pass attempts without an interception in league history. So
and obviously,
he's being careful with the ball.
Obviously, he's going to have an interception at some point this season. But here's the thing about Jared Goff. What I do like about Jared Goff, and a lot of people tell me all the time, he's not as mobile as you would like. He's not as athletic as you would think or would want in a quarterback. Yeah, he's not. But the one thing that he does do pretty well is he does take care of the ball. Now, a lot of people might gloss over that, but if you give a team 3, 4 extra possessions during the course of a season, you're talking about the difference between maybe 2 to 3 wins.
And
Like
I
that.
can totally see the hate for the reason that he wasn't, because he's still actually number 2 on all active quarterbacks with as far as turnovers since 2018. Josh Allen's number 1. He's had 84 turnovers since the start of
Right.
2018, which gives me to a whole nother topic. I won't even go there. But
But
with
don't you
but with
think
Jared Goff being at 80, bro, and how good he's taken care of the ball the last 15 games, he
but
turned it around.
but don't you think that, so this is my opinion, watching Matthew Stafford with the Rams, I feel like that offense is more predicated on taking risk, okay? So if Jared Goff is your quarterback, if you're Sean McVay, you're gonna say this guy is not good enough for my system because you're gonna have to make these throws that Jared Goff doesn't make.
Well, the Rams, they run kind of an air raid West
Right.
Coast, sling it like gunslinger kind of mentality.
And
They want
Josh Allen,
to just want to push that ball.
the thing about Josh Allen being the top turnover guy in the NFL, I feel like that is also coaching predicated, because if you always tell your quarterback throw long, get the ball deep, like you're
I
gonna
do not
throw.
know what the hell he was throwing at Monday night, dude. That was crazy.
I don't know.
He
See, this is what
This dude is the modern day Brett Favre, which can be a great thing and a bad thing. Just expect that if you're watching the Bills play football. This dude
right.
is literally 2020 Brett Favre, like the 2020s version of Brett Favre, and just the fact that like, hey, we're gonna sling this bitch and whatever happens happens. But some of those throws, I'm like, dude, that can hurt you too. Like, I mean, hey, yeah, Josh Allen's a great quarterback, right? But like, you're chucking a ball 85 yards into triple coverage, like.
Well, that's what I was talking about. Like if you have a if you have if like it's what I was talking about with like if your coaching is predicated where you don't run the ball enough and you just pass deep and like look at the Rams running backs and look at the Buffalo Bills running backs. And I love James Cook as a running back, but I like him more as a pass catcher. I don't like him as a running back
Right.
solely. Now, if
Which
you
is kind
told
of
me,
surprising that they got rid of Singletary, because he was kind of their
well,
through the
I
tackles
mean,
guy.
Singletary wasn't great either. I was telling people, I was telling my coworker who was a Buffalo Bills fan a couple like last year, I was like, they need to draft like a running back. He's like, no, we need to draft a tackle. I'm like, look, you need to draft a running back because you need to like kind of divvy that workload off on Josh Allen, because I feel like if Josh Allen got less passing attempts, I feel like he'd be a totally better quarterback. I
That's
feel
just
like
tough because those teams are structured differently. Like, you could say the same thing for like the Chiefs and the Bills. I feel like it's always like there's always a discussion for running backs, but like, are you really going to utilize a Jonathan Taylor, or a Derrick Henry, or a workhorse back with that team? I mean, it just wouldn't fit. It just wouldn't work.
no, I agree with you. And Jay Mommy, she says, just subscribe. Thank you. I appreciate everyone. You need to subscribe to the channel
Thank you,
on
J Mommy.
YouTube.
Appreciate you.
And
Woo!
she said that Gibbs will double the receptions as to running the ball. He is a flat out weapon who could potentially, I mean, probably outrun anyone covering him. And you know what? That's the thing about Gibbs that people don't really understand is like, if you are a linebacker and you're covering Gibbs, you're screwed. Most safeties are screwed.
Well,
So
how is it going to change the coaching? Like, you're going to have to account for that speed. So, like, what do you do? Do you put a nickel corner on him? Do you put a safety on him? That's going to open up Laporta. It's going to open up Amon
you're
Ra.
gonna
Like,
have to. That's what I'm saying. Like the
yeah, you're
Gibbs
going to
is
have to pick your poison.
Gibbs is a weapon that a lot of teams are gonna have to kind of focus on. Like I don't think they're gonna be in this spot where they can be like, oh, we're just gonna like focus on St. Brown. No, because you got Laporta up the middle, you got Gibbs coming out of the backfield, you got Montgomery that could smash it in between the tackles. Like you got guys who could potentially be game breakers. And if you're a Lions team that is trying to figure out what you're gonna do offensively for the rest of the season, there's a lot of things Ben Johnson has at his disposal. Credit to Brad Holmes though, because Brad Holmes has put him in the position to utilize all that talent. And a lot of people, they always say like, oh, it's Ben Johnson's offense. It's Dan Campbell's offense. Ben Johnson's obviously running it and doing a pretty damn good job, but this is Dan Campbell's offense. And we know that for a fact because they're a run first team. You could tell that they're a run first team. And they're kind of built like that New Orleans team that had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara as the two running backs on the backfield.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we're looking forward to seeing in Seattle is like we're going to find out a little bit about Seattle and what they're about too this year, because they tried to tweak a couple things. They added another receiver into like what already was thought of as like a mostly run heavy team, because Pete Carroll, like, he loves to do like power runs and play action, and a run heavy team, which is always crazy that they've had like good, like they've built like this powerhouse trio of receivers. So it's interesting to see what they do and how they adjust from their week one loss. Like everyone said, like, they're going to be pissed too. Like, I know Aaron Glenn's response to that was like, "Well, I'm pissed because we gave him 99 points with them the last 2 years." But like, there is something to be said about a team like getting absolutely demolished by a team that should not have beat them. So they're going to have some extra fire. I just hope that we don't have like a victory hangover, and we come in and we like stay locked in. And I think these guys, although they're young, they are mature and they have good leadership, and they have people that are constantly reminding them of this message every single day. And that's just don't take any of these teams, these wins for granted as guaranteed wins. Like, come in here, work hard, bust ass, and like, let's just not even let it be a game, because Seattle's one of those teams where like if you let it become a game, like they can make it become a game. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, and I look at it like this. I look at the guys that didn't practice yesterday and who were in limited practice. You talk about Jamal Adams being a limited participation in practice. That's pretty huge. Devin Bush, limited practice yesterday. The injury report doesn't come out for another hour for the Seahawks, but I'm really interested to see what their injury report looks like tomorrow as we get closer to the game time, because if you have potentially Jamal Adams being injured, that opens up so many possibilities for this offense to kind of go hog wild.
Yeah, and those and like you said, it just depends. A lot of those guys seeing limited practice on Wednesday, I mean, it usually trajectory more towards like them playing, just because a lot of the guys, if they're real hurt, they'll show no
Absolutely, yeah.
practice up until Thursday or Friday. But hey, even if you got some of those guys at 70%, that's definitely gonna like help how our game plan is adjusted. I think Aiden Hutchinson has got some work to do this week as far as just getting to that quarterback and helping set the edge for maintaining that run defense.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this looks like, and I'm excited to throw out some thoughts and predictions for this week's game for sure.
So my final kind of, we'll wrap this puppy up in a couple minutes, but we're gonna do our bold predictions and then our final closing thoughts, and then we'll do a game predictions. We usually do that on the podcast every like game preview. So you talked about Aiden Hutchinson, and this is a total week for Hutch and James Houston to come out of nowhere and just be really good players. And I thought that Hutch last week showed that he's a different player than he was in year one, which I expected. I think every one of us that are Lions fans expected Aiden Hutchinson to take that jump as, a defensive end. Now you're looking at, like, I even looked at Josh Pascal last week. Like, Josh Pascal on that fourth and, like, I think it was 4th and 5 or whatever. That play that he made to on that 4th down was absolutely crucial for this team. And if you like seeing like a guy like Pascal come out of the woodworks, like,
Yeah.
look, you're gonna have injuries at some point in the season. For you to have depth like you do at defensive end, where Romeo Okwara is like your guy that's like rotating, I mean, it's not a bad spot to be in. And for the Lions, they're going to have a lot of advantages over teams with their defensive line. I can tell you that right now. So a lot of teams are going to have to adjust to Aiden Hutchinson, which is going to open up guys like Ali McNeil or Levi Onwuzurike. Or
is he doing all right, by the way? I know he had a little bit of an injury during the game. He's all right.
He did pretty good. It was just a cramp. They were all cramping up, so it's all good. But Onwuzurike did play a pretty decent game. There was one play where
I know as far as play wise, but I know that he went down. He was hurt, and I was holding my breath. I'm like, shit, I don't want him to.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, but I just think that that's what you got to look at for the defensive side. Jay Mommy, she posted another comment. She goes, Gibbs had 103 passes with 1 drop in college. Laporta was 5 for 5 in the passing game and made some very good blocks, including the one that Montgomery scored. The rookies were very good. Yeah, you're right, because we were talking about that in the beginning of the podcast. We were saying how the rookies, like, they literally did a pretty damn good job. I'm bringing that graphic up again. Like, look at this graphic. Like, you talk about – let me get rid of this comment for a minute. You talk about Gibbs leading the league in missed tackles. You talk about Branch being the 5th best speed in the NFL on that that pick six. You talk about Laporta, 3.4 yards average separation and 100% completion catch percentage. You can't get better than that. I don't care what you talk about. You can't get better than that. And the fact that Brad Holmes has put together this this draft picks of Branch, Gibbs, Campbell, Laporta, those are four guys that you're going to be able to count on. And if you have a draft where you get, let's say Branch is a great player, let's say Gibbs is a good player, let's say Laporta is a great player, and let's say Campbell was a good player. Well, you just basically drafted starters. So if Brad Holmes is doing what he's doing with the draft, like you can potentially see yourself as a competitor. Like I know a lot of people think of the Lions as as a as a good team right now, but if Jack Campbell, if these rookies grow into players that you ultimately think faster than we thought, you could be in the NFC Championship game this year. So that's how.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Every year you have to draft guys. So every year now you're just going and like mastering cap, who to pay, who to not pay, who to replace because someone got hurt, who
And
to replace because someone got old.
it's such a unique situation to be in because as Lions fans, how many times have we went into a draft and
Oh,
gone, okay,
we're always looking to draft a savior of some sort because the rest of our team is just shit.
no, I mean, look, we went into drafts for years saying like, how are we going to screw this draft up? Like, how are we going to screw it up? And what
Right.
Brad Holmes has done is said, okay, when I went into draft day, I was talking to you, Tyler. I was like, okay, what kind of goodies are we going to get this year? Like, who are we going to get? Like, what kind of we going to get? We going to get a linebacker? We going to get a wide receiver? Who are we going to get that's going to make me like?
Well, it's funny
just
because
rub
the
my
first
hands
couple of
in?
years, I think we're ready for the sexy picks because the first couple of years it was like offensive lineman, shit, defensive lineman, defensive lineman, defensive lineman, but you had to build the trenches first. So it's like you had to.
Phil brings up a great point. This is what we're talking about. The way Holmes is drafting, this is a sustained success, not a one-year wonder. We are built for the long haul. And you know what? When you look
Couldn't agree more, Phil.
when you look at this team and the way that they're built, Holmes did a really good job of one thing, and I'm going to credit him on just one particular thing that he did really, really good. He didn't buy into the Kayvon Thibodeau hype. He bought into the Aiden Hutchinson hype. The one thing that he did really, really good was he didn't buy into certain hype with other players. He said, "Screw it, we are going to make we're going to make a draft pick." Like I know a lot of people didn't like the draft pick at the time, but like a guy like Levi Onwuzurike, maybe he becomes something that many people didn't really think he could be. I think
Josh
it's going to
Pascal
be
too.
Josh Pascal. That was the guy who was injured. People were saying that, why did you draft Josh Pascal? Well, you know what? Josh Pascal did pretty damn good, and he was a key contributor in that KC game. Look, what Holmes has done is what all these general managers before him never did. Okay, they never made the right decisions for the team. They usually drafted a guy like Tease Tabor, or if it was Martin Mayhew, you go name a guy that he drafted. Mikel LaShore, Bill Bentley, like just guys that you're like, what? Like
Right.
we drafted Eric Ebron, what? Over Aaron Donald? Like, come on, guys. Like, and that's what the Lions have always.
Lincoln Tomlinson, baby.
Oh, that was another one. This is what I'm talking about though. Like with Brad Holmes, you know what you're gonna get. Like he might be outside the box with this Gibbs pick. Like a lot of people were like, why did they pick Gibbs? Well, if Gibbs turns their offense into a multi-dimensional unit, you know what it is? It's a total win because that's what you're trying to do. Now let's get on.
He said screw positional value. I want my guys, and I want guys that are going to help me win. The non-positional value, all those positions played a very key part in us winning against the Chiefs. So,
well,
so breaking away from the mold a little bit. He's doing it the Brad Holmes way.
So here's the thing about positional value. I always help. We talked about it in the podcast last year, Tyler. I don't believe in positional value. I believe in you drafting the best player. Like if you could draft the best player, like if someone told you that you could take a defensive tackle or Barry Sanders in a draft, who are you taking?
Barry Sanders, yeah.
Right. If someone told you,
I guess it depends on the defensive tackle. I mean, if it was like
if someone told you that you were drafting
Aaron Donald or John Randall, I might have to think about it.
Well, if someone told you were drafting Justin Jefferson or a good left tackle, who are you drafting?
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
the positional value is stupid because if you get a great player, it doesn't matter where you drafted him from. Period.
Yep. No, I agree, man. I'm excited to see what the rookies can produce against Seattle, and I'm curious if we'll see a little bit of like, hey, the veterans are like, hey, man, don't forget about me. You know what I mean? I'm here. I'm doing my
So
thing. Don't forget
so
about
we
me.
got to talk about this, Tyler, because I think this is the biggest part of this game Sunday. Phil is that this guy right here, Phil. He's a season ticket holder. Okay, I know this guy because I know him personally, and he's a great guy. Him and his wife, they're season ticket holders for Lions. He says, "You want us to break 140 decibels, Campbell? Challenge accepted." I just want to know how freaking insane is Ford Field going to be, because I think we might have a retractable roof by no fault of our own. I think the Lions fans are going to go absolutely AWOL, because if you're a Lions fan, all you waited a long time for a team like this at Ford Field. You haven't had a team like this at Ford Field. Let's just be honest. Like, we thought 2011 team where they was 5-0 against the Bears on Monday Night Football, we thought that was a good team, right? This team is better. This team we have more hope in. Like, with that 2011 team, you go, that defense sucks. They suck bad, and they're not going to be good. But this offense is going to be fun. With this team that we have right now, I think that this whole Ford Field, these fans are going to go absolutely freaking AWOL. Like, I've been in there when it's been in there. It's when I've been in there when it's been totally like just raucous on a Thanksgiving game. But these guys, man, these Lions fans that have season tickets, Phil included, this guy is like, this guy, I'm telling you right now, he'll scream just as much as anyone I know. But he says we may not have a roof anymore by the end of the game, and we might have an outdoor stadium by the end of the game, because I literally think, and if you talk to someone, I talked to someone who was like an architect of Ford Field, and the one thing he talked about with Ford Field is it's built like an airplane hangar. Like, that was the Ford. That was like the Fords. What they really wanted to do was trap in all the sound. Now, originally, when they built Ford Field, they wanted it to be one of the best acoustic stadiums for music, for concerts and everything. But also with football, like, if you get a team that's good, that place is going to be freaking loud, and that's a great acoustic stadium. Now, what are you doing with your camera?
Trying to readjust it on my computer here. What I was gonna say too, to kind of bounce off that, is like, I wasn't alive to see it or to know, but I've heard about it, and I know Phil probably remembers, and a lot of fans that were fans in the '90s with Barry Sanders.
So you're calling
Which
Phil old? Okay,
the Jets and the Lions, man, 1997. They literally had to tell the crowd to shut up
that was a Jets
because
game, yeah.
the Silver Dome had 100,000 people going absolutely ape shit, and that is just crazy. Like, the refs literally stopped the game to try to
I'm
tell
so
them to
glad
shut the hell up.
I'm so glad that's not a rule anymore. Like, how stupid was that? Now, we look at this Lions team and like the possibility of this crowd just being absolutely raucous. I can't wait to watch it. I wish I was there, because like, you look at this team, but this is going to be an all year thing though. Like, this is, I think when we look back at this at the end of the year, people are going to say, I don't want to go into Ford Field ever again. I think the Lions and Kansas City are going to have the two like hardest places to play, because look at the way the stadiums are built. They're built to trap in the sound, and I think that these Lions fans have waited a long ass time to just go absolutely crazy. Now, I know they're gonna go to their pregame parties, like the tailgates, like the Den, Easter Market, wherever they're gonna go. Like, these guys are gonna hog wild, so they're gonna come there all boozed out on booze, and they're just gonna take it out on the other team. And I'm all for it. Like, let's go.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be crazy, man. And Phil, if we get to 140 decibels, man, that is the equivalent of an airplane taking off, my man, and that's gonna be like that throughout the whole stadium. He said the secondary is very fun to watch in live action, and we haven't seen Mosley yet. These guys are flying around the backfield last week. One of the best against one of the best in the game. We're coming for you, Gino. I'm calling another pick six this week. Phil with
Ooh,
the hammer, baby,
ooh.
with the bold prediction.
The
Let's
bold prediction.
go.
Now, I know Phil might be a little bit high on barbecue, Kansas City barbecue, but Phil knows his stuff. So, you know what? That's a good bold prediction from
I don't know if we'll, and plus, like you said, we haven't seen Mosley yet. I don't know if we will this week.
His practice, yeah.
I would say most likely you're looking at.
But Jerry Jacobs still had the lowest QBR QB rating against on the
we
team.
got a good chance. We got a good chance again, man. And so, yeah. So that's going to be exciting, man.
And I know there's a lot of Lions fans that went to Kansas City for that whole Kansas City Lions game, and Phil just hit the money on the head. Like a lot of those guys are season ticket holders, like Crackman, like Phil. They go, I want to give a shout out to Arrowhead. That was the loudest stadium I've ever been in. It motivated me to really shout for even higher in our stadium. And if you have ever been to Arrowhead, you know that it's a loud ass stadium. Like I know we think
they've got the NFL record for the loudest during a game is like 143 decibels.
I know we think that in our state with the University of Michigan State that we have like the loudest like venues, like, especially with Michigan being the biggest like stadium in the country. But man, if you go to LSU at night or you go to Penn State in a whiteout, it's unholy, just ridiculous. And I think that Lions fans could take that up a notch, to be honest. If we're going to be totally honest, these Lions fans have waited, like I said before, they waited a long time for a good team at Ford Field, like a real good team. Like not 2011, not 2014. They've waited a long time for a team that could potentially get home field advantage. And if this team ever got home field advantage in the playoffs, good luck to everyone that's coming into Ford Field, because you thought Seattle was bad. You thought Arrowhead was bad. Ford Field is just going to be just as bad. Marquise and Kayla Mata said, we're gonna kick the Seahawks asses. Amen. Look, I think he's right.
Amen, baby.
Let's get our bold predictions. I really want to get in our bold predictions because I have a really bold prediction. Last week, I went 1-0 because I said that we were going to pick off Patrick Mahomes, and we did. Little did I know it would be a pick six. That was amazing. But I'm going to let Tyler go first since he's 0-1, and let's go, Tyler. Make it count. Make it count, buddy.
Yeah. Our bold prediction for this week is we're going to go 5 sacks for this Lions defense.
Whew, 5 sacks.
5 sacks.
5 sacks. Now, why are you saying 5 sacks?
I think they're we're coming in angry, and they're
does that even count as a bold prediction?
We haven't had 5 sacks in I don't think the last 7-8 games.
You're right. But bold prediction, I mean, like I think they get 5 sacks easily.
So we'll go defensive bold prediction, and then if I had to go, we'll step up further. I'll go offensive ones. I'm gonna go. Jared Goff goes for 300. Ooh. 300 yards.
Take that in FanDuel. That's gonna give you some good odds.
Yep.
Okay.
I got a good feeling about Goff this week. I feel like he's he gets a little bit more comfortable, and I think he's gonna sling a few. I think Amon-Ra is gonna absolutely eat. I think I'm gonna say 5 sacks for the defense, and I'm gonna say Jared Goff for 300 plus.
So my bold predictions, what am I going to do? So for defense, I do think that they are going to get another pick 6. And at this one, I think it's going to be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is going to get a pick 6. But if you really want a really bold-ass prediction, I think Aiden Hutchinson is going to get a touchdown. Okay. I just think that he's going to get pressured, and Geno's going to throw one up because they're going to need to score some points because the Lions are better at home than they are on the road offensively. I think Geno Smith is going to make a mistake, and he might make it to Hutch. And I think Hutch is going to take one of these interceptions that he gets because he had 3 interceptions last year. Mm-hmm. So he's going to take one of these back at one point. Like we all know that.
Well, that could be a strip fumble touchdown. It could be a pick 6. It could be something. So just a touchdown in general would be huge. I mean,
anytime touchdown.
Anytime touchdown.
Anyways,
plus 4,400 probably.
Probably. For my offensive bold prediction, I'm gonna go Amon-Ra for 155 yards.
Okay.
I think Amon-Ra is gonna go bananas this week because I think they're gonna feed off the crowd. I think people always tell if you've ever talked to a player, they always tell you they feed off the crowd. I mean, this Lions fan base is absolutely insane. So if Amon-Ra is gonna come, he's gonna come ready today this week and just absolutely ball. So I like that. And you know who likes it too? Philly likes it. Amon-Ra to the bank. Let's go. Now, there's a couple comments that I want to get to. Phil had a comment about Ford Field was extremely loud for preseason. I've been to a season ticket holder since 2009, and I've never seen us get loud for a preseason game. This Sunday is going to be unbelievable. If you put a product on the field, Lions fans will show up. That's exactly what I was talking about. Like, we've needed someone to put a damn product on the field that people actually want to go and watch. Like, there's enough crazy ass people in the state of Michigan that they could just get any like lunatic to come out of like the cornfields of Midland or the cornfields of Bay City, where Tyler's ass is from, and just like make that hillbilly just scream loud as hell at the Lions game. Now,
Rob said something about, will golf throw an interception? I hope not, but this could be the end of that run. I don't think so. I think that this being our first home game, I think he's going to ball out, and I think that I don't think the golf interception's coming this week. I say golf holds on to the streak until week 4.
The Packers game.
Packers.
Okay, that could be one, because Jaire Alexander is pretty good. AJ Terrell is pretty good for Atlanta, but they got Tariq Woolen, so maybe something happens. But I think Goff is going to be fine this week. I think he's going to be good. And you know what? If he does throw an interception, who gives a frick? Because I think this team is good enough they can get over. They played a B- game last week against the Super Bowl champion and still won. So let's go.
Yeah, and then Craig said, "Do you think Lions will make a move before the deadline? And what do you think they'll do?" We'll be quick on that. I do think they're going to make a move. I see it being for like a potential Mike Evans or a wide receiver. Unless we have injury, I don't see us making a big move for, say, a defender. I think it'll be. I think it's pretty obvious that it would be wide receiver if we were to make one, and I think we'll see something before the deadline. It just like I said, the one that makes sense to me is either Keenan Allen or Mike Evans. And that's if the Chargers are willing to move off of Keenan Allen. I could see us doing.
So you're saying Staley is going to get fired for once?
That dude is trash, bro.
Dude, I'm telling you right now. Whenever I watch Brian's, what is his name? Brian Staley or Brad Staley, or who gives a shit? Brandon Staley. My bad. Thank you. Brandon Staley is probably one of the worst game management coaches. He makes Jim Caldwell look like a saint. And we all know Jim Caldwell had some major gaps in the fourth quarter, but this Staley dude, he blew a 29-point lead in the playoffs. Like, what are we talking about? Like, this guy, if I was a Charger,
and listen, not to the Chiefs, not to the Patriots, not to the 07 Patriots,
to the Jaguars,
the Jaguars, bro.
And then he follows it up with giving Tyreek Hill like 275 yards in that game. This guy's supposed to be a defensive coach, and he can't coach defense to save his ass. So screw that guy. And he cost me a fantasy game. So that guy.
General Brown, Gibbs, and Montgomery both go over 100 yards with a touchdown each.
Well, that's a bold prediction by General Brown.
Crazy. That would be a crazy prediction, bro. Because that would thrash my prediction of Goff getting 300.
Right.
But
if your running backs combine for 100 yards and each get a TD,
no, both get 100. Both get 100.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's 200 yards.
Yeah, it'd be nuts. But you know what? Like, that's the thing is you don't know every week. Like, I think we're the team and that's what's surprising. We could go off and we could throw for, 250, 300, or we can go and we could run for 250. Like, we have a very balanced team. We can run the ball. We can throw the ball. We can, our offense is not one-dimensional.
And Jay Mommy on YouTube, she said, amazing how fast the Lions became a threat across the whole league. I'm going to pair that up with what Phil said. He said, we filled the Joe, we filled Comerica, we filled out the Palace, we fill out Ford Field regardless. Imagine how it's going to be going forward with sustained success. Dare I say a home playoff game? What did Campbell say? The road is through Detroit. I think so. Tonight's game against the Eagles and the Vikings is total. Like, I hope both teams lose. But if you're talking about home field advantage, because I think this team is a really damn good team the Lions have. If the Vikings can help us out, primetime Kirk Cousins can help us out, which I'm really asking for a lot, because Kirk Cousins in primetime is like Cinderella, is like one of those like the toad that turns into Cinderella. It doesn't happen. Like, this is just what he does. So, but like, man, if the Eagles
mixed up two stories, bro.
Well, I don't know what it is. Anyways, one of those stories. Wherever. What is it? The toad turns into
the prince.
Yeah. Well, we know Kirk Cousins in primetime is not turning into the prince. So I'm hoping for Justin Jefferson to go AWOL, but we all know that the Eagles are pretty damn good. So
It'll be a win-win because if the Vikings win, it helps us get home field advantage if we make a huge run. If the Eagles win, it shoves the Vikings further down the NFC standings in the NFC North because it's at football. Anytime, at any point in time, any team can catch fire. The Vikings are a threat. At some point to win the division. Just if they catch fire, they're always kind of a threat. The Packers are somewhat of a threat to be up there with us. The Bears, I thought I would see a bigger leap from the Bears. Those dudes are absolute. But dude, those guys stink. They're not a threat at all. But you just want to play it safe, and you want to make sure that you stay atop the rankings. So either way, whoever wins, it'll benefit us in some way.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with this team because I mean, obviously, this game tonight is pretty. It could be pretty big for the Lions or for the maybe the Vikings lose. That's good for the Lions. If the Eagles lose, that's good for the Lions. Let's look forward to see what happens. But Phil, last one we'll get to. Phil said, I would love Mike Evans on a 2-year deal. And then he said lots of injuries for both teams, but the Eagles' depth gives them the edge. In my opinion, Eagles will probably win, but it'll be within a TD. So you're saying take the spread for the Minnesota Vikings, Phil.
Michael. Dude, after watching them get their ass beat by the Rams, this could be a disastrous year for the Vikings. This could be the year they blow it all up and get rid of Kirk Cousins and get a youth movement in there because Jay Jettis is still only 24. They got Jordan Addison in there. They probably could use another good young running back. I mean, Madison I think is still only 25 or 26.
Right.
But like a real beast, but you can get beasts in the second, third round. Anything is committee more nowadays. But maybe it's finally about time that you get a lot of these old heads out of Minnesota and they actually start kind of a rebuild too. So
the problem with Minnesota, I always say this, and you can agree with me or disagree with me.
Eagles thrashing these guys tonight, I think, man, honestly.
You can agree with me or disagree with me on this point, Tyler, is the Minnesota Vikings remind me of the 2011 Lions, right? So the Lions had some good wide receivers. I mean, obviously they had Kelvin Johnson, so you could say Justin Jefferson's up there. They had a guy who was kind of like a gunslinger. You could say Kirk Cousins is kind of a gunslinger. Their defense isn't that great. Their run game isn't that great. Their offensive line isn't that great. They have a good tight end. The Lions didn't have a good tight end, but if you look at it, like 2011 Lions,
I think the big difference is our defensive line was just absolutely nuts.
Right. That could be the key point that the Vikings don't have like the Sioux or Fairley in that, but they do have Danielle Hunters, which is pretty good. But still, I just don't take the Vikings seriously. Like we can go back to what you and Mayock said. Look at this. Whoops. You said the Vikings were going to be better. The Vikings and Bears were going to be better than the Packers. And what happened? And then you said, what'd you say to me? You said it was week 1. And guess what happened? I still think it's going to come true. Like the Packers are the team that could challenge
Jordan Love. We didn't know he was the biggest question mark, but he looks like he belongs. He looks good.
I say no more, Tyler. I say no more.
I
told you people. I told them last year when we were talking about Tremaine Edmonds coming to the Lions. Remember, people were like, "Oh, why didn't we get Tremaine Edmonds? Like he's a good linebacker." And I'm like, dude, he is the most overrated linebacker in the NFL. And did you see those snaps he had in week 1? Whew. Talk about just straight up trash. Now let's get to our closing thoughts because we've had a long podcast as it is. Yeah. Now the comments keep coming in. Rob says that Viking D is shit. He is right. They are not good. Jay Mommy says the Lions are going to take notes on the Eagles tonight. That is the path to the conference championship, which I think the Lions will be there. Oh, she's mistaken her claim. She is put one in the breadbasket. She said, let me see Green Bay against someone. Phil says, let me see Green Bay against someone other than the Bears defense who was absolutely decimated. That is a good point. If Tyler would have made that point, he would have solidified his argument. But him and Mayock are like, nope, they didn't say that.
We'll see. We'll see how the season goes. I think that for once we're finally in a position where we are in a clear-cut position to take the North. So I hope we don't shit the bed, but this doesn't seem like the Lions group or the Lions team or front office to shit the bed on that opportunity. Now, if we were in the same situation and we had Patricia or Caldwell, well, if we had Patricia, we'd be at the last place. But if we had Patricia or Caldwell or Mariucci or Marinelli or any of the Schwartz, I would be like, okay, there's a way for us to definitely screw this up and not take advantage, because we've seen it before. All these teams get big injuries and down years. I mean, the one year, Aaron Rodgers, broke his damn collarbone. I was like, oh, cool, this is our year. And I think that was either one of the years that the Vikings went off for no reason, or like the Bears, every 6 years, the Bears win 12 games and everyone's like, why? What the hell happened? Like every so often the Bears just go off on a win streak. So I think finally we're in a position to not shit the bed. And I'm just going to wrap that up into my closing thoughts is that, we're different. We're a different team. This is what makes us a different team, is actually taking advantage of situations. I'm tired of our team in the past of we have these breaks and we get lucky and we have these situations, but we do not take advantage. And so I think that that's what makes you a good team, is taking advantage of those situations and actually moving forward. With that is just like being able to do it the right way and just being able to be the right kind of team that actually relishes and takes advantage of these situations. Because before, we would just always find a way to spoil it and shit the bed. So I'm looking for us to continue out of the gate strong. We started 1-0 against the team that most people had us losing to, except Tony Dungy. Shout out T Dungy, it's my boy. We started off strong. Let's keep it going, man. Let's keep it hot. Let's keep it going. I mean, don't let it kill you if we end up losing a game, or two, because we're gonna lose some games this year. But let's keep the momentum high and the energy high, and keep a positive attitude. And yeah, man, let's try to get to the bye week with 5-2 record.
That would be great. Obviously, you're going to have some good games coming up where you can I think the schedule is very favorable for the Lions to get to the bye week. You got the Buccaneers, who you could take advantage of, the Falcons, the Panthers, who are, the Panthers are starting a rookie quarterback, and their biggest threat is Adam Thielen. Tell me more. My closing thoughts is simply this, okay? As Lions fans, we have always waited for the moment where we've had a good team at Ford Field. We have never had a good team at Ford Field. When we were watching the Red Wings, I said this in a video before, I think it was yesterday. I said that the Lions are going to try to be the bad boys of the NFL. And I stand to that, because I think the Lions, with the way that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was talking about how they want the fans to wear ski masks to the game because they want to be like the bad, they want to be the villains. That's what they want to be like. That's what Brett Holmes said with that hoodie that he wore. I think you're starting to see the culture change for the Detroit Lions into what we see a lot of Detroit teams have. Like you look at the 04 Pistons and you say, what was the key identifying piece for that team? Well, it was not really a superstar. It was their team and the way that they played the game. They were going to work. They went to the work and they took home the championship against Shaq and Kobe, which was a superstar combo. The Bad Boys Pistons, they had to upset the Lakers in that year that they won the championship. Look, there's a lot of things you could say about the Lions and a multitude of points, but when you look at the teams from Detroit that have had this, they've had this feeling before. Like if you've watched the Red Wings, you've watched the Tigers with Lou and Tram, like there's just a feeling that there's a better team with this team. And I look at this team more and more than I've ever looked at them as a contender. A lot of people, they always threw it out there like, oh, this Lions team is a contender, like 2014 Lions, right? I didn't believe one word of it, because I saw that defense and I said Cassius Vaughn absolutely sucks ass. Now, when you look at this Lions team that we have right now, this is a team that has talent everywhere. Everywhere. Let's look at the offensive line. Great, elite, right? Look at the defensive line with Hutch growing every game. That could be great. You look at that secondary, there's 4 starters in that secondary. That's great with that safety group. This team has gotten much, much better under Brad Holmes. And the key to success for all these Detroit teams has been, simply put, the general manager. Like, the general manager put them in the best position to succeed. Brad Holmes has done that with this team. He's done that with the drafting he's done. You look at the Red Wings with their run. Devlano and Howland, they made good decisions and they won championships. You look at, Joe Dumars. They won a championship. Chuck Daly, as a coach, they won championships. That is what wins games. And when you have a general manager and a coach on the same page, it kind of breathes light into kind of like you're building a championship team right now. So I think that a lot of people need to look at themselves in the mirror, and they need to really figure out that this isn't the same old Lions. Like, I know people want to say it's the same old Lions because that's like the usual, like, that's what they are. When you look at this Lions team and you look at the way that they're built by Brad Holmes, totally different team, totally different organization, and they're going to be a really tough team to beat. And when they get to the playoffs and it's a home playoff game, these fans are going to go absolutely AWOL because these fans have waited a long ass time for a home playoff game at Ford Field. 2000, they opened Ford Field. They haven't seen a home playoff game since then. It's a long time, and these fans have waited all they've waited a long time for it. So these are the best fans in the NFL, bar none, the Lions fans, because they have gone through so much absolute garbage to get to this point. They deserve every right to bask in the glory because this is a good team. I don't care what anybody tells you. This is a good team. And I think that this team is going to go pretty far in the I think they're going to go pretty far in the playoffs. I think that they're going to win a playoff game this year, Tyler. I think that they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. And if you aren't on the train now, you might want to get on before the bandwagon's full, because I know as someone who I created Detroit Lions News, right? And then the One Pride Nation, which is a group. I had 400 requests today. 400 requests to get into a group, a Detroit Lions group. Unprecedented. That's what I'm talking about with Detroit Lions fans. They are the greatest in the game, and we will see you guys in the next podcast as we talk about more Detroit Lions football. Obviously, we are going to do a Detroit Lions news show Sunday at 6:30. Darcy's going to be heading that. It's going to be a great show. Tyler, you're invited. Darcy invited you to, even though you talk crap about it, Seahawks. You need to be on there because we need to talk crap to his face about him picking the Seattle Seahawks to go to the Super Bowl, because that was a stupid ass opinion. Now we will see you guys on Sunday for the Detroit Lions News Show. I'm Joe Chapman. I will see you in the next video. I'll do a YouTube video tomorrow, game preview with my parlays and everything that you can look at. And then, Tyler, we'll see you in the next podcast. It's been a great one, and a lot of people came in and they enjoyed it. So we're obviously going to post this on FanDuel. We're going to post this on Apple and Spotify. So we will see you guys in the next podcast.
All right, man. Take these guys.